talking about the actual abduction and your ex-partner trying to file for your parental responsibility to be removed. So when all this was happening, what agencies and organisations did you contact within the UK to get some help and support?
So, Rhiannon was reported as a missing person to Essex Police. I then contacted the court in Cambridge and said Rhiannon's been abducted. I was then directed to reunite, and that was it really. Because of the court order saying that Rhiannon could be taken out of the country for 28 days, Essex Police refused to consider Rhiannon as a missing person. So the first thing Essex Police did was say, there's nothing we're going to do, we have to wait till she comes back. However, I'd also spoken to Suffolk Police, or Essex Police had spoken to Suffolk Police, I can't quite remember. Suffolk Police had gone to the woman's refuge and spoke to them there and found out that she'd given up her lease in the refuge, so it was clear she wasn't coming back. That her 2 cars had gone, that's a Land Rover and her van. All her equipment was gone, nothing was in the UK anymore. Also, nothing could be found. Essex Police still maintained that I had to wait until the 28 days was up. So we had, so they'd done 2 weeks, 14 days. So we had another 14 days before I could do anything else. So I had 14 days of limbo, where I waited for Essex Police to decide whether Rhiannon was missing or not. So, in the meantime, Essex Police had spoken to Interpol, and Interpol had requested a health check, I think they call it. And the local police went out, found the mother, found my daughter, reported back to Interpol saying they're safe and well. Essex Police said, your daughter's not missing, she's safe and well. And I said, my daughter is missing because she's not in the UK and that's where she needs to be. No, we know where your daughter is, you know where your daughter is, now you have to go back to court. So that then Reunite directed me to the government department, the ICACU, which is the International Child Abduction and Contact Unit. And the first shock I had was, we actually have an International Child Abduction and Contact Unit. Why does the UK have one of these? But anyway, that's another story. So they sent me a load of forms, I filled them in, and I had to register my interests under what's called the Hague Convention on the civil aspects of international child abduction. Still, Essex Police wouldn't consider my daughter to be missing.
Is this, hold on, so even with, you contacted Essex Police saying that my ex-partner sent me a message stating that she's gone to Poland and she's not coming back.
Yeah.
And they still said they can't help you.
Yes. The Essex Police did everything they could not to do anything. So I would write to the Chief Constable, he would pass it on to a guy called Greg Wood. I would have a conversation with Greg. Greg basically would say, I cannot bring your daughter home. I cannot get your daughter back.
Did he give a reason why?
Because it was a civil issue. Your daughter isn't missing. We know where your daughter is. This is a civil issue. I said, no. The court orders have criminal penalties attached to them if they're broken. No, that we won't deal with it. We're not interested whatsoever.
Did they request to see the court orders?
Yeah, they were sent all the court orders. They were sent every bit of information that I had, and they requested. Anyway, time went on. I tried contacting other charities in the UK. missing people charities. But because I didn't have a criminal crime reference number, they would not help me. So because Essex Police had said, your daughter's not missing, that stopped me getting access to any other support. So no charitable support whatsoever. So now we're really on our own. And I'm having to fight for my daughter. And I don't really know what I'm doing or how to do it. And as time goes on, in dealing with Essex Police, because it wasn't just me who wrote to Essex Police, I think it was 20 or 30 of our friends wrote to Essex Police. And they just said, we've got these 20, 30 replies, I'm not going to reply to them all, because clearly it's a template letter and you've just sent them in. So the answer's the same, we're not doing anything. We know where your daughter is and your daughter's safe and well. And they even got to a point where one email I had from this guy called Greg Wood was quite rude, given that my daughter had been abducted. I hadn't spoken to her for, I think it was 6 months, so they had no contact with her at all. And they keep telling me the same thing. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything. So I then transferred focus to the Hague Convention. A very, very stressful period. We had our first appointment in December 2018. We went all the way to Poland for basically an hour's hearing. And we came home again. Then we went back to Poland for a 3-day hearing with witnesses, and we came home again, and then we went back for the 3rd time, and they gave the decision that my daughter was unlawfully abducted and is illegally retained in Poland. She is to return home within 2 weeks. Okay, back to Essex Police. The court has said that my daughter is illegally retained in Poland. So, was unlawfully abducted and is illegally retained in Poland. My daughter is missing. They contact Interpol again. Interpol sends someone out. They find my daughter and the mother. They come back. We know where your daughter is. We know they're safe and well and healthy. That's the end of story for us. Okay. So, wait 2 weeks for my daughter to come home. She doesn't come home. She goes into hiding now. So she's now hiding in Poland, but at the same time, she's instructing a solicitor. So the next thing I get is a claim from the Polish authorities for child maintenance. So now she's taking me to court for child maintenance in Poland. But what I forgot to mention, I was already paying child maintenance in the UK. So for 12 months after Rhiann's abduction, the child maintenance service carried on taking deductions directly from me, from my wages, even though I'd repeatedly told them that my daughter's been abducted, she's no longer in the country. 12 months later, they sent me a letter saying, you don't have to pay child maintenance anymore because your daughter's not in the country, and she said, so therefore there's no obligation to pay. Every time, so I did see Rhiann in Poland, but but only when the court said I could. But the court said I could see Rhiann every time. But I was always seeing Rhiann accompanied by her mother and by her sister, who was a Polish police officer. And they always demanded money. Every time we went, it was always, all she was interested in is give me money, give me money, give me money. But I wanted to be with my daughter. I wanted to have time with my daughter. And I've got beautiful photographs of me and Rhiann. Where Rhiann's just over the moon to see me. But anyway, she went into hiding. So At the same time she went into hiding, there's an appeal taking place. So, an Essex police aren't playing ball. The ICACU are arm's length now. They're starting to say, well, there's not a lot we can do. We're just an administrative authority. I'm now writing to my MP, sort of thing. But in between all of this, the first recovery attempt to collect Rhiannon is about to take place in September 2019 now. And we go out there, spend a fortune, because I thought I was bringing my daughter back, so I wanted it to. I went out of my car, not flying, and we went to the recovery. And at the first recovery attempt, it was clear to me that the court appointed official was not interested. At the end of the day, she actually said to me, I've been working on this all day. Bearing in mind that we started at 10 o'clock and it was 3 o'clock and I'm tired. That's what she said to me on the first recovery attempt. She wouldn't collect my daughter from school. And at the time I was paying for a solicitor and she wouldn't listen to my solicitors. She had to be persuaded to do another 2 recovery attempts in the same week because we were already in Poland. Both recovery attempts failed. The second recovery attempt, we went to the house in the evening and the whole house was in darkness. All of them had gone. And this is a working farm. The second time we went, the third time we went in the afternoon, and again the whole property was empty. On the first attempt, I forgot to say, we did see the grandmother and the sister. The sister said, do you want to speak to Rhiannon's mother? And the curator said no. On the second attempt, the grandmother said that Rhiannon was at school and gave us the wrong address for the school. It was a school she used to go to. So, and when they were interviewed by the police, they denied that Rhiannon had ever been at the house and stuff like that. And it was just lie after lie after lie after lie. So now I'm in the process of writing to the Polish police, writing to the Polish government, writing to the Polish Justice Minister and so on and so forth. But Rhiannon's in hiding. And the thing that really got my back up was the curator is appointed by the court and lives in the area of where my daughter lives in Poland. The police force is the police force that my daughter's abductor sister works for. So now I've got a curator lives in the area, the sister who works in the police force who's helping the curator to locate and find my daughter. Surprise, surprise, they managed to avoid detection for 12 months. No one can find my daughter. This is a fair-haired, obviously not Eastern European child, fluent English, and by this point fluent Polish as well. And no one knows where she is. Then we get into COVID, and then the world just stopped. Anyway, she lost her appeal. The appeal court said that the abduction was premeditated, it was unlawful, and Rhiannon's retention in Poland was unlawful. Back to Essex Police. This is what the court has said. Rhiannon is missing. Another Interpol visit, another come back saying, we know where Rhiannon is, she's fit and healthy. Essex Police don't want to know. Then, the sister, the police officer, takes me to court for defamation. So, she doesn't take me to civil court, she takes me to the Polish criminal court for defaming a police officer who's a public official. So now I'm dealing with a criminal defamation case in Poland. But At that point, the court sent me loads and loads of documents that clearly showed the premeditation of Rhiann's abduction. Where she was living, what they were doing. By this time, it had been in the papers in Poland, quite high profile in Poland. And I wrote back, I explained everything to the court. The Polish court threw her defamation case out, gave her money back. So I'm winning all the way along here. Every case I'm coming up against, I'm winning because I'm being honest and I'm telling the truth and I'm providing the evidence. Go back to Essex, please. No, not what we can do. Go away. Then I had a conversation with a guy on Twitter who said to me, you know, I think you've got enough evidence to go back to the police and say they need to review your case. By this time, I'd managed to I'd managed to find an organisation called Essex Central Law, and it's a community interest company. And an absolutely brilliant woman called Shalila. And she listened to me, didn't judge me, and she started to help me and didn't charge anything, not a penny. Because by this time we'd spent everything, 160k I think it was. And she wrote to Essex Police, to the Chief Constable, and laid all the evidence out. I was looking for a specific bit of evidence from a police officer from Suffolk Police who'd done the refuge where she was living at, and I contacted him and I explained to him what I was doing. He then submitted my extra evidence by email to his sergeant, who submitted to his inspector, and then Suffolk Police asked if I would come and see them again. Essex Police were still arguing with Shalila from Essex Law, saying, you know, that's not what he told us, and so on and so forth. Suffolk Police did a review and said, we believe your daughter's abduction is a criminal offence. We need to take a statement from you and we need to talk about what we're going to do.
So hold on a second. So, you've been liaising with Essex Police numerously with regards to your case. Your ex is on Interpol, you've got court orders in place, and they wouldn't touch you.
Yeah.
Okay? Then Suffolk Police, which clearly seems to me that they've been doing their job correctly, have identified that the abduction of your child is actually a criminal offence, which child abduction is a criminal offence.
Yeah.
Okay? And now they have decided to take on the actual investigation.
Yeah, but just a tiny little bit before that, in desperation, I also contacted the National Crime Agency to try and get the National Crime Agency to persuade Essex Police to do something. And the National Crime Agency were brilliant. But Essex
So you're just talking about the National Crime Agency. So,
yeah.
So what happened between them and Essex Police?
Well, I don't really know. It's the answer. Other than I had two guys at the National Crime Agency. Neil Dodds was one of them, and I was emailing them, and they were going through the motions, and in the end, we got to the point where they were saying, "Look, our role here is to advise police forces of how to deal with cases, certain cases in a certain way, child abduction being one of them. Essex Police." The ball is in Essex Police's court. We are an advisory service only. So that closed down the National Crime Agency. I then contacted MI5 and MI6, who came back and said, "We're really sorry, we don't deal with this sort of stuff." I wrote to the Queen, Prince Charles, Archbishop of Westminster. Anyway, all came back saying, "Not we can do. I'm really sorry." So I'm now left with Suffolk Police, and the letter to Essex Police. So now I'm in a situation where Essex Police are saying, "Oh, okay, so there might have been a crime committed, but what we need to do is carry out a case review." Suffolk Police have already carried out a case review and said there has been a crime committed. So now Essex and Suffolk Police are sort of arguing over jurisdiction. So rather than argue a strong case, i.e. was Rhiannon abducted from Stansted Airport or did she go out of the country in a different way, Essex Police just said if she was abducted from Stansted, then it's theoretically our responsibility, but don't worry about it. Suffolk Police seem really interested, let them do it. So we carried on with Suffolk Police and let Essex Police off the hook. Essex Police did send me a massive big list of stuff that I had to provide them, most of which I'd already provided in the early days. But when they were talking about jurisdiction, it was clear Essex Police didn't want to get involved. I think it was all too difficult. When I was interviewed by Suffolk Police, they were really compassionate and they understood and they made no promises. But the thing is that there's such a difference between how the two organisations dealt with me as an individual and dealt with the case. And Suffolk Police carried on. They did their investigation. I supported the police officer. New evidence started to come in as different things were happening. And then the mother applied for what's called a cessation appeal. So this is an appeal against an appeal outside the Hague Convention, which basically puts the court case in the Supreme Court in Poland. Anyway, another year passes. The Supreme Court in Poland dismissed her case, and they say in their summary it is clear that Rhiannon's abduction was premeditated with the sole intent of taking her out of the UK and never returning, taking the UK to Poland and never returning to the UK. Again, this evidence was presented to Essex Police, it was presented to Suffolk Police. So we carry on. Only ones that are interested are Suffolk Police. The next thing I try to do is what's called a Brussels 2A application. And what that is it's an application for the enforcement of a court order issued in the UK in another country. So the court order to be enforced was the court order issued for Rhiannon's immediate return by the Cambridge courts. That took a year. I won that as well. And but my source is still in Poland. And all this has been given to the police forces and everything. My case went to the CPS. The CPS said no, we're not going to prosecute, there's no case. I appealed. And the CPS came back to me and said, the appeal guy came back to me and said, we believe there is a case that Rhiannon's abduction is a criminal offence is being committed of child abduction, contrary to the 1984 Child Abduction Act or something like that. So now I'm being told that it is a criminal offence. Now, it was really important for me for a number of reasons. If Essex Police had done their job properly, we were still in the EU because we were in a transition period, and Essex Police could have asked for an international arrest warrant for my daughter's abductor. Rhiannon could have gone on Interpol as missing, and on the balance of probabilities, because I knew where everyone was, I may have had my daughter home. But Essex Police just kept telling me, we can't bring your daughter home, and we're not even going to bother. So the next thing is, so the CPS in December 21 decide that it's a criminal offence. Now the ball's backward between CPS and Essex Police. So now I'm asking Suffolk Police to put Rhiannon on Interpol as missing and to progress with criminal charges against Rhiannon's abductor. Interpol refused to put Rhiannon down as missing because they say they know where she is. And I keep providing evidence telling Interpol and Suffolk Police that Rhiannon is not where they say she is. And eventually Interpol agreed to put Rhiannon down as missing, and Rhiannon is now on the yellow notices on Interpol. CPS took absolutely ages to lay criminal charges against my daughter's abductor, who went on to I-24, which is the international 24-hour wanted network, I think, for the international police. She's now on Interpol, but not publicly on Interpol. But she's now wanted. She's wanted in connection with the abduction of my daughter. There are now extradition proceedings in play, but because we've left the EU, and because of Poland's attitude towards the UK and the Hague Convention, nothing is happening.
Out of interest, why is your ex-partner not publicly on Interpol?
I don't know. I've asked. I wrote to Suffolk Police have now stopped communicating with me. I was supposed to have a meeting with them. They cancelled the meeting because they had to go and collect a prisoner from London, and he's not responded to any of my emails. So I wrote to him and I said, please can you tell me when my daughter's abductor is going to be on the red list on Interpol? And I've not had a response now. That's been 3 or 4 weeks now.
So let's talk about how you feel. So how do you feel your interaction was with Essex Police when you desperately needed their assistance and help? How do you feel about your interaction with them?
The only way I can describe Essex Police attitude towards me was callous.
Bearing in mind you've got court orders, Interpol, Suffolk Police, other organisations that have supported you, but yet they still refuse to help.
I don't know whether they've got... Well, all the police forces have got resource issues, I get that. But my guess, and as I spoke to a couple of guys, when a father takes a child out of this country and the mother says it's an abduction, everyone jumps. It's just... They just don't ask how high. All hell lets loose, and there's been lots of examples in the last 4 years of that happening. But when a father does it, okay, so your daughter's been abducted, so you must be abusive husband then, or abusive father. No, I'm not. Even when Essex Police came round to interview me, they still searched the house and the shed, because they thought might have stuck my daughter in the loft or in the shed. So
effectively, they treat you like the criminal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When they spoke to me, they said, well, look, do you mind if we have a look around and see if your daughter's here? I said, well, be my guest. But
even though you've shown evidence that she's abroad.
Yeah, and I'm going. I can't explain the emotions when you're being told we're going to have a look for your daughter, but I've just told her she's in Poland. She's been abducted to Poland. Well, we have to, and it's like we've got a box to tick, and one of those boxes is we need to be able to say we've had a look around and made sure that your daughter wasn't here. It's only a cursory look around, you know. They went pulling drawers out and looking under the furniture and stuff like that. But the thing is, from the moment I reported it, I don't think it was ever really taken seriously. I think, and even now, because I'm a member of a few groups now, there's a couple of young girls gone missing in Essex, around 12 years old. And the woman went on Facebook and said, please, can you help? Just a general post, please, can you help us find my daughter? The police are not interested. And that child was found via Facebook, not by Essex Police. Right. Another child the other day in this area has been reported as missing. I don't know if she's still missing. But my guess is Essex Police has said we have to wait 24 hours before we consider them to be missing. These are young people who could be emotionally vulnerable, and the police want to wait 24 hours. In my case, I had to wait 14 days before Essex Police would really do anything. And even when they did anything, they took the word of a police force where the sister works for, who's related to my daughter's abductor. And and all you end up is in this loop. You take one step forward, 3 steps back, one step forward, 2 steps back. And with the CPS nearly destroyed me because they said there was no case, and I knew damn well there was a case, and I had to appeal. So it's like, why do I have to fight for something that had already been decided in a 3-day hearing in court, hearing all the evidence, warts and all? Why did I have to have to fight? Because they'd already said my daughter's best interests are served in staying in the UK and having a relationship with her father. In Poland, 3 courts, including the Polish Supreme Court, turned around and said, irrespective of whether the mother goes back to the UK with their daughter or not, my daughter's best interests are served by being back in the UK with their dad. What is that testimony telling you? It tells me that there's something dreadfully wrong with the mother, is what it's telling you.
So do you feel if this was, because I've seen cases myself that have been publicised, shall I say, in the newspaper, social media, on TV, where it's happened, where the father may have taken the children, and I've seen how differently that's panned out. So do you feel that maybe if it was the other way around, it would be different?
Well, we know it's different. The evidence is clearly there that when a father tries to abduct a child or does abduct a child, all hell lets loose. There's publicity. The interesting thing is, I got no publicity, no cooperation from anyone. I got some newspapers interested, well, one newspaper interested in the UK and one in Poland. No names, though. I had to go to the High Court in London to ask for the publicity ban to be lifted. Well, I actually went to the Cambridge Court first, and they said they couldn't deal with it. They referred me to the High Court in London. I spent 6 weeks preparing my case for the High Court in London. By this time, I got loads of evidence from my solicitor, which said the Polish police are not going to cooperate. They're not going to look for your daughter. A whole list of things, that evidence from the European Commission that Poland are being investigated for non-compliance on enforcement grounds. The judge gave me 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, he denied me the publicity. He said that he would not allow publicity, even though that Rhian had already been on TV in Poland. The mother had been on TV, and she'd been on Polish newspapers and on social media all over the place.
And what was the reason for this?
He didn't give a reason.
So he made a judgment, but not actually provide the reason as to why you are not allowed the publicity.
The reason is I have faith in the Polish authorities, despite people from Poland, including my solicitor, who is one of the best in Poland, saying, I have no confidence in the enforcement. 10 minutes he gave me, and I got the transcript because I needed to show it to some people. Shalila from Essex Civil, whatever they're called, sent it to a guy, a Queen's Counsel QC, and he read it and he was absolutely appalled. So then I'm thinking I'll go back to the High Court and try again. So going on to advocates, eventually I get allocated a couple of barristers, and the really difficult thing is I'm now in this territory is everyone in the UK and Poland says your daughter should come back to the UK. All the legal people, all the courts. But do you know if you go back to the High Court could change its mind, and so could the Polish courts. So why? Because in my head, my daughter's being abused. She's been psychologically abused. Actually, more than psychologically abused. She was diagnosed with PTSD. I don't know whether the PTSD is true or not, or whether it was just a reason why the mother used to stop enforcement in Poland. But they've got a note from a doctor saying my daughter suffered from PTSD. I wrote to Essex Police and said, my daughter has suffered from is suffering from PTSD as a result of her abduction. This is child abuse. She wasn't in school. She was on the run. I went onto the NSPCC website. I said, these are the things that NSPCC say are child abuse. I ticked every single box, not an education, not knowing where she is, deprived from loving parents and family, ripped from her country, ripped from her school. And Essex Police didn't mind now.
And how did that make you feel?
Devastated. Absolutely devastated.
And did you how did you feel about the system? Because the system clearly hadn't really supported you. So.
Well, okay, so when I speak to fathers now and they say to me, well, my child's been abducted to Poland. And I don't know what to say to them now, because what I really want to say to them is, I'm really, really sorry. No one's going to help you. You're not going to win, and your child's not coming back. And when they say why, I'd say because no one cares. The police don't care. The government doesn't care. Other countries don't care. You can do what, despite all the human rights, the child rights, all of this stuff, a parent can do what they like with their child. And to be fair, and this is a bit controversial really, that includes killing the child. And they do. During the period of my daughter's abduction, a mother killed both their children in Poland and herself rather than hand them over to the father under a Hague Convention case. I wrote to my MP, I wrote to the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, I wrote to the Polish court and said, don't let this happen to my daughter. I do not want to be going to my daughter's funeral. On your head be it. Because, see, I knew what stress I was under. I knew what I was going through. So either she was so complacent in Poland, knowing because her sister's a police officer and in Poland they don't enforce anything. Surely she must be under stress. I mean, she was always asking for money. Wouldn't that drive someone over the edge? Wouldn't that, I mean, at one point, the Polish courts said that she was mentally unbalanced because she was trying to project onto me in text messages, I know you've got a mental issue, I know you're unwell. And I complained to my solicitor in the court, and the court told it off and said, you cannot write text messages like that because they are not true. What it does demonstrate is your mental capacity is at risk, your mental state, not his, yours.
How long has your daughter now been abducted for?
So come August the 9th, we'll start the 5th year.
So it's 5 years.
Yeah.
So based on that, and based on what you've seen with other situations where it's been the father that's taken the children and been recovered within, I'd say, 48 to 72 hours, and then now you are waiting 5 years and you still haven't recovered your beautiful daughter.
No.
How does that make you feel?
I just think it's perverse. I think we have two systems, one for mothers and one for fathers. And fathers are the second-class citizens who are denied legal aid, and every possible obstacle is placed in their way to stop them getting their child back.